Thank you and welcome to today's Candidate Forum, brought to you in partnership with City Club Central Oregon and the League of Women Voters of Deschutes County, two organizations that are passionately nonpartisan and whose purpose today is to engage and inform Oregon voters for the general election. Today we are hosting the candidates for State Representative for District 53. My name is Kim Scott, League of Women Voters of Deschutes County past president, and I am honored to serve as moderator today. First, I'd like to take a quick shout out to City Club's annual sponsors and the League of Women Voters of Deschutes County members. Without their support, we would not be able to bring you today's program. Today's live stream is also made possible by Connect Central Oregon, a nonprofit launched with the assistance of OSU Cascade's Innovation CoLab. Our sponsors for the entire series candidate forums are the Deschutes Public Library and Buchanan Schmidt LLC. We are grateful for their support for these forums. If you are interested in supporting City Club or the League of Women Voters of Deschutes County, please check out our websites. Our candidate forums are conducted according to the League of Women Voters guidelines. All candidates filed for their races are invited to participate in our forums, and we hope to present voters with all participants. In the interest of fairness, we do not let an RSVP of regrets cancel a forum. Thank you to State Representative District 3 candidates, Emerson Levy and Jack Zika for participating in today's forum. We appreciate the gravity of committing to run for office, and our goal is to provide an opportunity for fair and civil discourse. The Oregon House of Representatives District 3 is the donut part of the Central Oregon Districts 53 and 54. It includes the outskirts of Bend, Tumalo, Redmond, and Sun River. It is one of the 60 House seats in the Oregon State of Representatives, and each House member serves a 2-year term. We will start with opening statements. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for their opening remarks, and for each question, each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer. At the end, each candidate will give a 2-minute closing statement. For opening statements, we have randomly selected the order, and closing statements will be the reverse order. Our questions come from a combination of league and community submitted questions. Questions will be given in a rotating manner. So let's get started. Jack, you are the first for your introduction and opening statement. Thank you.
Thank you, League of Women Voters and City Club, for holding this forum. I have a lot of respect for both organizations. My grandmother was in charge of the Ohio League of Women Voters, and I grew up learning the importance of civil political dialogue. In my first term in the House of Representatives, I have worked in a bipartisan fashion to address the biggest problems facing Central Oregon. I wrote and won strong Democratic support for a bill to allow Redmond to construct nearly 500 new affordable housing units outside of its urban growth boundary. Too often, debates about land use in the legislature can be partisan, but we showed that they don't need to be. And many Central Oregon families will benefit. And I hope to take that law statewide so other communities struggling with an affordable housing crisis can get the help they need. I also worked across the aisle to pass legislation to help homeowners protect their property from wildfire. Last month has shown us just how exposed our cities and towns are to the risk of wildfire. My bill will help ensure that property owners are better equipped to protect their families and their property. Governor Brown appointed me to her Healthy Early Learners Council, where we are working on to improving Oregon's early childhood education programs. And I'm also a member of the Child Care Caucus and the Central Oregon Child Care Task Force, where I'm working with providers, employers, and regulators to relieve the child care crisis that we have in Central Oregon. Like many of you, I believe that working together in a bipartisan way to address our biggest challenges is the only way to make Oregon better. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Jack. Emerson, would you like to have your opening statement, please?
Thank you, Kim, and thank you to the League of Women Voters and City Club. And thank you everyone at home that's watching this evening. My name is Emerson Levy, and I'm running for State Representative in House District 53. So like Kim said, commonly known as the donut, including Redmond, Tumalo, Sun River, and parts of Bend. I am a mom of a kindergarten, so we are doing the full at-home learning thing right now, probably like a lot of you at home, and I'm an attorney with a focus in financing and real estate. I'm a passionate advocate for women and children in our community. I'm a Democrat, and I was honored to receive the nomination of the Independent Party, and I think that speaks to my dedication to reform and being committed to our community over party. And as a candidate, I have 3 main goals in this race, and they are representation, reform, and readiness. So representation, I want to represent and be representative for everyone in our district, not just the people who live in my town or my party. And we have 4 distinct cities with 4 distinct needs and personalities, and I want to be an accessible legislator that everyone feels like they can reach out and connect with. Second is reform. I believe in strong political campaign finance reform, and this means not taking money from big lobbyists that have sprinkled their influence over this race and so many others. And readiness. I will be a future-focused leader. So I want to create jobs that match our modern economy. So like clean energy jobs. I have a child care plan that is ready to go, and that we can implement right away. And we need to address public health, climate change, and support our educators that are really going through a lot right now. You know, I hope over the last year of campaigning, or even those just tuned in now, you've seen my dedication and work ethic, and I will carry that work ethic over to Salem and be a relentless advocate for you and your family. Again, thanks so much for having me.
Thank you very much, Emerson. Emerson, keep your mic live. You get the first question. The first question is, what is your understanding of the Black Lives Matters movement, and how will you plan to support the BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color community in your district?
Thanks, Kim, for that question. I think it's a really important question, and I feel grateful that we're able to start off with that. I have been a strong supporter of the Black Lives Matter movement, and I think when we talk about Black Lives Matter, especially in our community, I think that gets conflated with policing. And I want to talk about those as two different subjects. So, you know, the Black Lives Matter movement originated out of policing struggles, but we have to go back, you know, to 400 years of a group that has experienced systematic oppression. And that goes into our housing code with redlining zones where you couldn't buy a house and you couldn't get a loan if you were a person of color in our community. And we are seeing the economic devastation from this 400 years of historical oppression. So I have publicly lent my support. I want to be very careful not to center myself. I will, in the legislature, follow the lead of BIPOC women and men who have better knowledge and better understanding of the experience of the BIPOC community, and I will follow their lead. I am impressed with Representative Bynum and all the legislative concepts she's putting forth, and I think she's been a great leader. So again, my intent would not be to center myself, but rather to be a listener and a learner, and to support our BIPOC community in every way that I can.
Thank you very much, Emerson. Jack, same question. Would you like me to repeat?
Yes, please.
What is your understanding of the Black Lives Matters movement, and how will you plan to support the BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color community in your district?
Thank you for the question. So the root of the question, if you're asking me, do Black Lives Matter? Yes, of course they do. And I've been working through my whole term in the legislature in a racial disparities in housing task force. And it's been a bipartisan, bicameral group where we're trying to bring housing and home ownership to minority communities, and how can we address that? And it's education, the awareness of programs, teaching high school kids about home ownership for generational wealth to lift them up and then bring them out of poverty. I was also recognized by the governor and put on a racial justice council, again, for home ownership and homelessness. So I think that there's a theme there that I'm kind of the housing guy in Salem. So that has been important work too, that we're working on. Same principles as the task force, home ownership, and how do we get to the people before they become homeless. So what can we address there? We had a special session where we had a few police reform bills as part of the movement, and we passed those almost unanimously on all of those, and I agreed with all of those, and I was able to work with our local police to find out what we're doing And a lot of our police already have body cams. You know, as many cities and Oregon don't have body cams for the police officers. We do. And I also have a bill that I'm going to introduce in the next session, should I be reelected, to help police officers go to do wellness checks. So when they have traumatic events like the riots that have been going on in Portland, where people are throwing things at them and yelling, and the fires and the looting, that they can actually go talk and not take that home. And there's a lot of things that we can do in the legislature, and I think we're working on them, and we're making great progress.
Great. Thank you very much, Jack. You also have the next question, so please don't mute.
Okay.
During the 2021 legislative session, you will be redrawing legislative districts following the completion of the 2020 census. What will you do to ensure the districts are fair and equitable, representing the people, not the politicians?
Oh, this one was rough, because I really supported the Women Leagues of Voters plan to people should pick their who represents them, not politicians. So I would love to try to work with the Women's League of Voters to even introduce that as a piece of legislation, to put that on the ballot for even next time. We can't stop. We have to try to keep that going. So the lines, we're even going to have a tough time this year because of the way the pandemic happened and the delays with the census, that we've heard that we might not even get the counts back until June possibly, and we're supposed to be done with that by the end of June. So it's going to be a tough to attain, to try to get the lines districted. But so I have not been a part of that process before, and I assume leadership will have discussions with that and try to get that. But I would hope to get fairness and make sure that everybody is represented. I mean, you can see that within just Central Oregon in our districts, where they call the 53 the donut. You're not supposed to be able to. You're supposed to be able to get through your district without driving through somebody else's district. And so 54 is in Bend. And so to get to Sun River, I pretty much have to drive through Bend to get to Sun River. So that in itself is not the way that's supposed to be drawn out. So I think we have some work to do there. And then if you look over in the valley, they've got lines that follow the highway, then cut out certain parts, and even down south where they just go in and zigzag through neighborhoods, and all of that needs to be redone. And I hope to work with the Women's League of Voter to figure that out in the next session. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Emerson, the same question, would you like me to repeat?
Oh, no, thanks, Kim, I got it. I agree that it needs to be done in a bipartisan fashion, and we will have the consequences of redistricting for over, a decade. I think exactly when you look at 53, you see some interesting districting. I really think that a lot of leaders in Central Oregon and Eastern Oregon are used to maybe working together more, and I don't think it benefits anyone for, let's say if Democrats, Republicans are in charge to create districts that are in favor of them. And I also support the nonpartisan approach, even an outside committee to help with redistricting, because when we undermine the process, when people feel that the districts have been, gerrymandered, or however you want to describe it, to favor one party or the other, it undermines the democratic process. And when people don't feel like it's fair, they don't feel like their vote matters. And I think, especially with everything going on in our country right now, as a state and as leaders, we need to do everything that we can to show that democracy is alive and well, and that your vote matters, and it's not determined by wacky maps. So I absolutely support nonpartisan committee to help. And I also support everyone working together to create a solution that looks like the district, so people can be represented by someone who represents their community. And I think that's incredibly important. So thank you.
Thank you, Emerson. You have the next question. It is, how would you approach the issue of affordable housing, and what recommendations do you have?
Affordable housing is such an important topic, especially when we're talking about what truly makes something affordable. So when we look at our housing crisis and how we got here, I think to really understand a problem, we have to look at the root of the problem in order to solve it. So we are still coming out of a housing crisis from the 2008 Great Recession. So for about 6 years, all housing stock stopped, and we weren't building anything. But at the same time, we were experiencing migration into Oregon. And at the same time, when you look at Deschutes County's economy, it's also very tourist driven. So we have a lot of homes that are also purchased for Airbnbs, VRBOs, you know, as a vacation home or as a rental property for a vacation home. So that really tightens the supply. So that's the problem, and that's kind of how we got here. So we have a supply and demand problem. So what I support is a modification to our zoning code and continuing to build in first, because when we talk about what makes housing truly affordable, we need to ask ourselves the question: does it take 2 cars for that home to be able to get to work and to live? That changes the affordability. What is the cost if we're if we're exploding our UGB and we have to build all these roads? And even if builders do build them, we're looking at a lot of unfunded liabilities long term. So I believe that we can release the valve a little bit on our zoning in order to build in and to build near jobs to make sure that housing is truly affordable. But we do need to increase supply, and I am dedicated to increasing supply, but just in a responsible way.
Thank you very much, Emerson. Jack, same question. Would you like me to repeat?
Nope, I got it. Thanks. So this is something that's been very important for Central Oregon, and Oregon in general has been housing. We are 400,000 homes short after the recession. So prices have been skyrocketing. Affordability is an issue here in Central Oregon, and a lot of it has to do with housing. When you talk about the UGB and adding land, you increase the supply to meet the demand. Right now in our area, you have a plot of land could cost $140,000, and in Portland, it's the same thing. You have it's $200,000 for a plot of land, but you go outside the UGB, and it's $20,000. So that's a big difference for the lot. So if you were able to add and increase land to the UGB, that would cut some of those costs down. I was successful in passing 2336, which is the Skyline Village, which is in Redmond, and partnered up with the county to be able to gift us the land, gift the city of Redmond land. That's going to truly make that affordable. So when you think about affordable housing, you think around 200,000. But if you have land that's 140, and then SDCs, the system development charges, which are 60,000, you're at 200,000 before you've even broken ground to build the house. So those are 2 high costs. And there's a work group that's in process that's going to be formed for the next session to address SDCs and see where we can try to cut some costs, maybe do them on a slide scale for affordability. So affordable houses pay less, luxury houses pay more. I have a bill to try to take housing statewide, same pilot program that we had here in Redmond and Bend. So the other cities will be able to enjoy that if they can get the land like we did from Deschutes County. We have a lot of non-resource land that you can't irrigate, you can't grow anything. We're a lot different than they are on the other side of the mountains where they have fertile land. So you have to have regional approach to land use laws. So the way we develop, since we're the 5th fastest county in the country developing and growing, we need to be able to adjust for that. And what works for Portland doesn't work for us.
Thank you very much, Jack. You'll have the next question also. COVID-19 cases have been shown to be increasing in our state. Are you willing to follow the suggested scientific guidelines, even if they include shutting down all but essential services, if the crisis worsens? And how will you, as a state legislature, help everyday Oregonians during this continued crisis?
Yes. So this has been something that we have never seen before. We've never gone through a pandemic. And then on top of that, we got wildfires, and we had to do mandated closures to stop the spread. And it was difficult. And I think we've learned through this process that PPE is definitely important. Masks are important, and getting schools and daycares masks and hand sanitizer. And even when they had limited food items through Safeway and other grocery stores, that we needed to be able to have daycares be able to purchase chicken nuggets. I mean, it's simple as stuff like that. It was just that these were the things that were addressed that happened that nobody was prepared for. And then moving on was the employment department. That was a a huge failure. You know, the software needs to be updated to allow the federal and added funds through the CARES Act and through that $600 for people that normally wouldn't qualify for unemployment. So the system wasn't ready. We needed to update the software. I know that's going to be a big topic in the next session, to make sure that we help these people, that if they do close the employment sector or the job sector again, that we're prepared for it. I spent throughout the summer, I was getting hundreds of emails every week of people that were not getting unemployment. We helped them navigate the system and get through and get unemployment. That was the biggest priority I had during the summer, was trying to help these people so they were able to pay their bills, so they were able to keep their electricity on, so they could buy food. You know, it was pretty bad there for a while. We had 70,000 people that were on a waiting list that weren't getting their checks from their benefits. So that was a big learning process, and I think we'll be better prepared if there's another. Hopefully not. We'll pray that there's not another one, but hopefully, we'll be better prepared. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jack. Emerson, same question. Would you like me to repeat?
Yes, actually.
COVID-19 cases have been shown to be increasing in our state. Are you willing to follow the suggested scientific guidelines, even if they include shutting down all but essential services if the crisis worsens? And how will you, as a state legislator, help everyday Oregonians during this continued crisis?
Thank you, Kim. You know, I am a huge advocate of public health, and I think you've seen that from, you know, me personally and our campaign from the beginning. And I'm encouraged of the representatives' comments around public health, but the message being put out from their office has not always been so public health forward. And I would encourage to continue putting out a stronger public health message, because it's really important for our community. I think the thing that we really need to address and just say out loud is it didn't have to be this bad. We had a lot of pushback, a lot of people encouraging people to meet inside where there might be singing, and reopening rallies. If we had taken this as seriously as, you know, a lot of people did, as seriously as Dr. Fauci told us to do, this didn't need to happen. In fact, we did a town hall with one of the most revered scientists around this specific issue, and said it would have never been this bad. So first, I think we need to acknowledge that when science comes out, we need to take it seriously. Second is, how are we going to help our communities? And again, if we continue to wash our hands, wear masks, don't meet inside, where we're in close quarters, that's how we can help people, because there is no such thing as a V-shaped recovery. That is not going to happen. We know that economists, they were looking more like at a K-shaped recovery, and that V-shaped recovery does not exist without a vaccine. So I would just say, what we can do the most to help people and to help our kids get back to school and help people get back to their place of worship is to take public health incredibly seriously, and not make mass political and not make public health political. These are people's lives. We have lost way too many lives. And the best thing we can do is to take care of each other and to follow these guidelines put out by the CDC.
Thank you very much, Emerson. You have the next question also. How would you describe Oregon's climate issues, and why or why not do you think human-caused climate change is a contributing factor? Okay,
great two science questions back to back. So first, I will start by saying I believe in climate change, I am science-focused and science-driven. So yes, climate change is a problem, and it's not just a problem that's coming; it's a problem that's here. We need to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. We are looking at the consequences of that. We're looking at consequences of wildfire, which have been just utterly devastating this summer, and they were as worse as they've ever been. And second, we can also boost our economy by addressing climate change. We can create clean energy jobs that can help replace so many of the jobs that have been lost by the privatization of timber and the exploitative resources in a lot of timber towns. We can bring a lot of great jobs by addressing the seriousness of climate change, but also, when we look at all the mini markets that we have in our community, so we have recreation, we have salmon, we have all of these things. When we upset one part in our ecosystem, like say through fires, we've also disrupted our salmon. And it's what we have is a delicate ecosystem, and when things are thrown off through climate change, we will see far worse things. So just to summarize, yes, I believe in climate change. I think we can actually get serious about addressing it and get serious about creating jobs around it. And I support wildfire management so that we can get control of these things, but they are costing us too much to not address climate change and take it seriously. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emerson. Jack, your same question, and that would you like me to repeat?
Yes, please.
How would you describe Oregon's climate issues, and why or why not do you think human-caused climate change is a contributing factor?
So yes, I do believe climate change is real, and Oregon's biggest contributor, sadly, is our wildfires. The smoke from the wildfires contribute more CO2 to the atmosphere than all of our cars combined for years. So just the couple months of smoke is more than a year of car exhaust. So we really need to be able to manage the forests. And I had a bill that I passed to help the urban wildland interface to help property owners clean up their property and have more defensible space. But that's a contributing factor. And then if you look back at my record from when the last session, I voted yes on solar subsidies for homeowners. I voted to ban fracking in Oregon because we have serious water issues that need to be addressed here. I voted yes to ban offshore drilling off of our coasts. We were involved with making a plan to make it easier to develop larger solar and wind farms. I voted yes on that. That was part of the Energy Environment Committee when I was on that in the first session. And then we had cap and trade, which was a bad bill. And Emerson talked about having the supermajority, and neither party should have that. This was a product of a supermajority, and we had no input. They bent the rules, they pushed the limits on it, and that bill was a bad bill for Central Oregon. We talk about affordable housing and affordability of Central Oregon. That bill would have increased the price of everything, including right now, since we don't have a viable option besides electric cars, but they're not widely put out there. People are still running gas and diesel, that we still need to buy gasoline, and tractors for farming still need gasoline, that price could have gone up to $3 more per gallon, and heating your home would have gone up, your groceries would have gone up, everything. So that bill was bad, and that is why I voted no on that in the 2019 session.
Thank you very much, Jack. Jack, you have the next question. The unemployment benefits computer system is sadly out of date and has been an issue for those trying to access benefits during this trying time. Since 2009, there has been $86 million in federal money allotted to pay for a computer upgrade. Since the state legislature is one of the groups over the unemployment office, what can you do to help fix this?
Thank you for the question. This was extremely disappointing. The employment department, like you said, had funds to update the software, and it never happened. Unfortunately, that was when we were in the last recession, when the real estate bubble popped. And so there were a lot of those funds were used to help folks out that were becoming homeless or would have become homeless. So the unemployment department had to use a lot of those funds, but they just did get more money coming in from the federal government to assist with the software upgrade. So like I said, in the next session, this is going to be a priority for many of us to make sure that this the software gets updated, and the allows for different programs, and it won't be inundated and lock up like it did. We need to have better trained people working there. The analysts, when they did the surge and hired more people to come in, they weren't trained. So all they could do was answer phones and put people on hold, while the people that were trained did the tough cases, which takes a long time. But so this is a priority, and the software needs to be updated, and it is something that I very much want to work on in the next session to make sure that we do not go through this again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jack. Emerson, same question. Would you like me to repeat?
No, thanks, Kim. I don't think that Jack and I have a lot of disagreement on this topic. What happened was absolutely awful. I mean, I had a friend that attempted 17 times to get her unemployment approved and went months without a paycheck. And I think we have to look at what is the true damage of that, and that is substantial, right? So not only you missed a paycheck, but all the expenses that you acquired while you were waiting for it, and then you've dug yourself a more extensive financial hole, and a lot of that could have been solved with some updated software. Again, I think we have to address the underlying root is that we had a massive pandemic, and I hope that we never see a surge like that again. And we definitely need to make sure that, with unemployment, that we're getting people back to work and that they're able to have a good job that they can support their family. But in a time of crisis, I think people look to their government to be dependable. And in this case, the state of Oregon was not dependable, and it put a lot of people in an already stressful situation under a lot more stress. I know that there's a great metaphor that I think a lot of parents have used, that you say when things are going wrong, that people tend to look at this like on a plane, if there's turbulence, they look at this at the attendants and say like, oh, they're calm, so I'm calm. And that, whenever you're going through something turbulent, to just keep serving the peanuts. And I think a lot of parents and families are trying to just keep serving the peanuts. But when we go through things like this, we're already difficult. And then you put that they weren't able to access benefits that they rightly deserved, not only cause financial strain, but put a lot of emotional strain on families. And I will do everything in my power to work on that.
Thank you very much, Emerson. You have the next question, the first of the next question also. The vast majority of the medical community support all children being vaccinated. Doctors are saying that the success of COVID-19 vaccine is dependent on getting a high enough percentage of the population being vaccinated, over 75 to 80%, for a vaccine to be successful. Do you support policies that ensure that children are vaccinated for COVID-19 and other communicable diseases?
Yes, I believe vaccines are directly tied to public health. And I believe that we need to establish herd immunity. I think that we have distanced ourselves so greatly from polio, from measles, from all of these terrible diseases that we don't understand what a medical breakthrough vaccines were, that they can keep our kids safe from these diseases. I support the vaccine for COVID-19 should it go through the CDC and it goes through all the proper scientific process. I would actually argue that we need a little more higher than that to achieve herd immunity. Actually, in House District 53 and in Central Oregon, but specifically House District 53 over our neighbors 54, we have a pretty high vaccination rate for the state of Oregon. And so we do need to achieve a herd immunity. There are kids that don't tolerate vaccines for whatever reason, some with autoimmune diseases, specific allergies. I have a friend that her son has an autoimmune, and he cannot tolerate those the vaccines. So those of us who can need to do our part and to achieve that herd immunity, so that kids that can't tolerate the vaccines don't have to worry about getting sick. And the second we drop below that 95, start trickling into 80%, we've exposed our children to really terrible diseases that we had eradicated. I think that it should be a science-based, doctor-based decision, but I strongly believe in vaccines and herd immunity, and I've already got my flu shot. So if you're able to tolerate the flu shot, that's my plug.
Thank you very much, Emerson. Jack, same question. Would you like me to repeat?
No, I think I got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I do believe in vaccines, and they've done a lot of great through our society, and they've eradicated diseases. And COVID-19 is the next one that they're coming up with, but I do not want it to be rushed. I want it to be tested. I don't want this to, and the president says it's going to be available soon, but I want this thing to make sure that it's safe and it's healthy. And we have to make sure, because reactions are real. Reactions happened. My son has had a reaction. I've got a lot of friends that have had children that were never against vaccines until it happened to their own child. And so their CDC even has side effects of death on a few of them. So, I mean, that's some scary stuff, but we have to have the doctor, patient, and parent relationship intact. We cannot put the state in between that relationship. There was a bill that was in the 2019 session that would have done that. And when you put the state in between the doctor and the patient, they can't make the best decisions, because the doctor then becomes fearful that they'll lose their license and then their livelihood. so that then the doctor doesn't make the best decision for the patient. So then we should have I don't even if we have policy, but the mandating is not a good thing. So we should still have the medical exemptions for that. But I do look forward to the COVID vaccine when it comes in, because I think it'll do a lot of good as long as it's not rushed.
Thank you very much, Jack. Jack, you have the next question. The Supreme Court Justices Thomas and Alito are bringing up the idea of re-examining Obergefell. Same-sex marriage is under attack. What is your stance on marriage equality, and what will you do here in Oregon to protect it?
Oh, I hadn't heard that one. I would protect it no matter what. Same-sex marriage is important. Who is the government to tell anybody that they can't marry somebody else? I mean, it just seems absurd. I support the LGBTQ community. We've had legislatures that are gay, and I support them. I've worked with them. I've got, of course, everybody says, "Oh, I have friends," but I do. I have friends, and I feel like that I would absolutely be hurting them if I ever did anything against the gay community. So I think that's absurd, and I would support and fight that.
Great, thank you very much. Would you like me to repeat, Emerson?
Oh, no, thank you. I'm very familiar with those justices' opinion and the case of which you're talking about. I don't know how that would actually happen, and I'm sure some maybe better legal scholars than I will be in the comments explaining exactly the process, but someone would have to show that they had standing in order to repeal that if they were repealing it through the Supreme Court process, and they would have to show that they were somehow harmed. So I would be interested to see the pathway to that. I obviously have a very strong record with LGBTQ issues and completely stand for same-sex marriage. I worked on Prop 8, I worked against Prop 8, and I was actually there in Los Angeles the day that, I'm blanking on the case, but when it was passed statewide. So this is an issue that I'm very committed to, that I have a 15+ year record of working on these types of issues. And yes, frankly, I don't see how this would happen. I know that I just would never want our LGBTQ community to feel that our people are using something so important to them to drum up fear in this political season through these kind of questions. I'm not saying like this question in particular, but these like issues. It could happen. We are looking at a different type of Supreme Court. So I guess it's really important issue to vote and to make sure your voice is heard. But I absolutely support same-sex marriage and have a very clear and firm record on that.
Great, thank you very much, Emerson. Emerson, you also have the next question. In 2018, voters overwhelmingly voted down Measure 106, an anti-abortion ballot measure. Knowing our state is overwhelmingly pro-choice from this vote, what will you do to protect access to the full range of reproductive health care, including abortion?
Absolutely. And when we talk about doctor-patient relationship and that talks about women's rights as well. And when we talk about reproductive health, that goes to so many different areas, right? And down to economics. There was a recent study out called the Turnback study, I believe, and it showed the economic disparities and mental health for women who were not able to access reproductive care that they needed. And this study went on for 10 years and was actually created and funded to answer Justice Kennedy's question when he said, we don't know the mental effects on women, but they assumed that it would have been terrible. But what actually they found out that actually wasn't true. So I support a woman being in control of her own body. I do not support men legislating women's bodies that they've never gone through the things that women go through. People have gone through miscarriages, people who know what it's like to wipe out their savings to pay for IVF treatment, or to make a decision to have an abortion because that matches their life need. They could be in an abusive relationship. married to someone that struggles with, narcissism, and that it's a way of protecting themselves and to be having the autonomy to make the decisions for their own body. I'm endorsed by Planned Parenthood and NARAL. But yes, so I support women's reproductive rights, and I know this is a common thing, but I don't think that there's any bills out there that legislate how what men should do with their bodies, and I think that speaks to needing more women in office. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Emerson. Jack, same question. Would you like me to repeat?
Yes, please.
In 2018, voters overwhelmingly voted down Measure 106, an anti-abortion ballot measure. Knowing our state is overwhelmingly pro-choice for this vote, what will you do to protect access to the full range of reproductive health care, including abortion?
Thank you for the question. So not a lot of people know that with that measure, what I don't think was communicated across was that abortions are legal up until 9 months till the term. So that's what I have been strongly against is late term abortion. I've got a friend overseas that would love to adopt who's in the military that can't because it's too expensive for the process. And my wife has a sister in Texas that would love to adopt, but she can't because of the process. My daughter was born 2 months premature, 3 pounds, and I saw her fight for her life with tubes and wires, and she held my son's hand, and it was just like she was there, she was present. And she was in the NICU for a month until she got to be about 5 pounds, and then we were able to take her home. But that little person fought for her life, and she's 50 pounds, and she's 5 years old. She's a brick house, and she's running around, and she's no problem. So there's a lot of things that come into account with late term or born alive that we need to really take a focus in on. But other than that, I've never come out and said that I wanted to get rid of abortions, but there are harmful effects for women, and we've seen it with the groups that help them after abortions, where they have mental issues that from the effects of abortion. So there has to be a lot of thought that's put in place before that decision is made, and I don't want to put myself in there and try to tell them what to do. But for the first trimester, I have said that I wouldn't oppose any types of abortion, and then after that I am pro-life, and I'm backed by right to life, but I'm pro-life with exceptions. Health of mother is one of them. So that's the kind of message I guess I want to put across with that.
Thank you very much, Jack. Appreciate that. You have the next question. Due to the Republican walkout during the legislative session, many important bills, including HB 4168, a forest management plan, were left on the table. If you were elected, will you pledge to stay in session and finish the work you were sent to Salem to do?
Thank you for the question. And I want to preface this that none of us wanted to walk out. If you look back how that session was handled, the last session, and the Democrat supermajority, and how we've talked how they've mismanaged the legislature. So the cap and trade bill would have died in committee because of what we have the Oregon Constitution, and we have House rules that protect the Oregonians through against tyranny, really. But and they broke those rules, and they added somebody into the committee. They added Peter Courtney. Senator Peter Courtney came in because that bill was going to die in committee. And so they added him to pass that through committee. And then it was 10-1 emails that I were getting that were against it. It was 5-1 written testimony against that bill. Over 30 counties opposed that bill. 2 million Oregonians were underrepresented in that cap and trade legislation. And then I submitted an amendment to go to a vote of the people because it was a decision that big that was going to change their lives that they needed to vote. It wasn't even heard. They didn't even want to consider it. That was the supermajority flexing their muscle. So that the only option we had was to walk out to stop that bill. And we came back a few days before the session ended to pass legislation, and the Democrats didn't show up to that. So they walked out in the last part of the legislative session. I was there. I was sitting at my desk. I was ready and waiting to pass these bills. We could have passed that bill. We could have passed a lot of bills in the last few days of session. The only thing we didn't want cap and trade because they broke the rules, and they made that bill so bad that it would hurt so many Oregonians, and they cheated in the process.
Thank you very much, Jack. Emerson, same question. Would you like me to repeat?
Yes, please.
Due to the Republican walkout during the legislative session, many important bills, including HB 4168, a forest management plan, were left on the table. If you were elected, will you pledge to stay in session and finish the work you were sent to Salem to do?
Well, that's an easy yes. You know, I walk towards problems, not away from them. You know, I think what is also left out of the conversation, that the bill was really gutted and there was a lot of compromise made. I don't want to say that I completely supported the bill as written, because I didn't. I think the one thing that Cap Invest got really, maybe could do a lot better, is it didn't clearly state what our rural communities, sorry, I'm from the South, sometimes that word comes out funny, communities really got from the carbon emissions pricing schedule. I don't think that it was good enough, frankly. But the walkouts are, it's not just this one time, it's not just this one thing. It's happened 5 times. So I think people are exhausted of it. How can we stop it? You know, we need to bring people more into the process. I think, you know, it's a fair point to say that we need to stand up to our you know, as a Democrat, to stand up to a lot of the stuff that happens in Portland. It frustrates me just as much as the next person, how much our voice here in Central Oregon can sometimes be obstructed. And I plan to stand up for Central Oregonians, and if that includes going against the establishment and the way that things are right now. I don't agree with the walkout, but I don't also feel like it's fair to say that that sometimes that Portland has an outsized influence. I think that is a very, very fair critique.
Thank you very much, Emerson. You also have the next question. There has been a disruption of on-site education, making online instruction the norm due to COVID-19. How will you push to ensure adequate high-speed internet connections for rural and lower income households to enable their children to benefit from this learning mode?
Yeah, absolutely. First, I just want to thank all of our teachers and our caregivers and the school board. They didn't create this situation that we found ourselves in, but they are the ones that are driving the solutions, and there's really no perfect solution. I was overheard on my daughter's call this morning. A 5-year-old said, "Oh, Mrs. So-and-so, this is just taking a little longer than I expected this morning." It's funny how like they've adapted their little Zoom lingo. So, you know, part of the way that, you know, education is a foundation for a happy and healthy life. It has been instrumental in my life. And so a lot of that has to do with equity and access. And right now, broadband is a way to have equal access to education. So I support the broadband bill. We need broadband. I just want to shout it from the rooftops that it should be treated similar to a utility, not maybe completely like utility, but it is as important in our education environment as being able to flip the lights on. Because if our kids do not have access to broadband, they do not have access to their education. You know, I think there's a school in, I believe it's in Jackson County, that has dial-up. And I think that maybe a lot of people on the west side of the state don't realize the difficulties that we face with broadband due to also the complexities of our soil makeup. So I support broadband. I support, you know, having our kids being educated. And again, I'm just so thankful to our teachers and everyone that's making this process happen, because it's you know, it's a mess and it's tough. And I know that everyone is working as hard as they can to get our kids educated and to get safely back to school.
Thank you very much, Emerson. Jack, your question, would you like me to repeat?
Yes, please.
There has been a disruption of on-site education, making online instruction the norm due to COVID-19. How will you push to ensure adequate high-speed internet connections for rural and lower income households to enable their children to benefit from this learning mode?
So the legislature has a committee called the Emergency Board, and the Emergency Board usually is tasked with spending money that when we're not in session, that they can fill those gaps. And typically it's wildfires, but this time with 2020, the way it's been, broadband was on the agenda, and they allocated $20 million to broadband, and I fully supported that. The only problem is that there was no plan. They have no plan to spend that money. And so when we went back in for a special session, they wanted to pass a tax on our cell phones and our cell phone plans, which I voted no on, because they still did not have a plan to spend the $20 million for broadband for rural area and for schools. They put the cart before the horse. And so they need to come up with a plan and spend the $20 million, but now they have this additional tax because the tax did pass with the supermajority. What I did during 2020 was I was in communication with our superintendent back when it was Mike McIntosh, before Sharon started here in Redmond, and talked with Bend as well. And they were putting up hotspots to make sure that Wi-Fi was available in our more rural part of Central Oregon. And also that Redmond schools were getting tablets for all of their students that needed it. So there was even teachers that were having issues with Wi-Fi that they were making sure to bring in broadband. So that is something that's very important. And then we also have to be careful, because there are details that don't get out, that when there's state money involved, then that cuts out federal funds. And so there were a lot of federal funds that were going to come in and help build the infrastructure for broadband in our rural area, but that now will be cut off because there's these additional state funds from the cell phone tax.
Thank you very much, Jack. Jack, you also have this next question. What is your position on campaign finance reform, and do you think lobbyists that now give large amounts of money have undue influence on politics?
I do think we need campaign finance reform. We saw some bills that were targeted towards more Republican donors than Democrat donors in the 2019 and 2020 sessions. So that's why there was opposition involved. But in committee, I did question what we need to do. And so there should be caps on how much money is taken in. There shouldn't be unlimited from lobbying. There should be there was a measure, I'm blanking on which measure was passed, that was said that was unconstitutional, and the Supreme Court backed it up as being unconstitutional, where your money is basically your voice and your First Amendment right. So when it comes to individuals, that's a different discussion. Should we just discuss about how much each individual can contribute? And I think that's something that we should talk about. And lobby, yes, I think we should talk about in kinds. So that's where we need to be careful. There are in kinds contributions, because there's large in-kind contributions that happen that from out of state that I think we need to keep an eye out for as well. Who's trying to buy elections from out of state that come in as well. And when you give the power to, if you say, okay, lobby, you can't contribute more than, say, arbitrarily $5,000. Then if there's somebody like a union that contributes $100,000 to the Secretary of State race or the governor's race, and they stop doing that, what they do is then they start running the campaign through in kinds behind the scene. And then the candidate doesn't have any control over their own campaign. So that's where we need to have those conversations. We need to be pragmatic about it and think about what are the consequences of money in politics, and it's evil. So I think we need to look at it and make sure that we do it right.
Thank you very much, Jack. Emerson, same question. Would you like me to repeat?
Yes, please.
What is your position on campaign finance reform, and do you think lobbyists that now give large amounts of money have undue influence on our politics?
I am a huge proponent of campaign finance and reform in our system. There is so much money in our system that it has outsized influence, and I think that's really dangerous. I also support reforms around PAC to PAC, so that there's a really lack of transparency in a PAC to PAC transfer, so you can't see where the influence is really coming from. I have not taken any money from these large corporations. I haven't taken money from any of the groups that seek to influence legislation at all. The average donation in our campaign is around $66. I checked this morning, I think it was 66 still. So yeah, I absolutely support campaign finance reform, because you want the will of the people to create legislation and to not be able to kill legislation that would actually really help people, but not help the people who have some money to lose. As far as in-kind donations, I would like to address that directly. I believe a representative is addressing that I received a large in-kind donation, but actually what that is I have a dear friend who has an advertising firm in Atlanta, and where I'm from, and is a childhood friend, and they helped me with some creative stuff. That is the in-kind. It is a friend helping out a friend, just to be nice. And when you run a grassroots campaign, pretty much all of my friends have and colleagues from all over have chipped in whatever their ability is, and a lot of that is their creative expertise or different skills. And I'm really grateful because it definitely takes a lot of people to be able to run a grassroots campaign. Thanks, Kim.
Thank you very much, Emerson. This will be, Emerson, you get the next question. This will be the last question of the questions, then we'll go to final. Emerson, last question. The League of Women Voters feels very strongly about civil discourse. What do you think can be done to reverse the polarization of the political parties and citizens in our nation?
Yeah, I think this is a really important question. I think when you've seen what's going on the national level, that people are really exhausted. I think that first presidential debate gave everyone like a tick in their eye. It was just so much confrontation that doesn't support the democratic or political process. I think that Jack and I have run really decent campaigns. We disagree about a lot of stuff, but I have never gone after him personally. He's never gone after me personally. I have never discussed his family or his job. And I don't think that you can say that for every race in Central Oregon right now. And one of my main goals in running this race is to show other women, especially with children, that you can run for office. And we cannot do that. People said to me when you run, aren't you worried about, your daughter or your family? And I hope that I've run a race, and I think Representative Zika's run a race that invites people into the process. I think we treated each other pretty decently. Actually, I think we've treated each other incredibly decently. And I think that's something I'm really proud of. And I hope that shows that you can be a part of the civic process and not feel like you've exposed your family or your whatever to a difficult and nasty campaign. And so I'm trying to lead with my actions on that and make very intentional decisions on how we run this campaign out of respect for my opponent and for myself and for other future people who want to run.
Thank you very much, Emerson. Jack, the League of Women Voters feel very strongly about civil discourse. What do you think can be done to reverse the polarization of the political parties and citizens of our nation?
Thank you for the question. And thank you, Emerson. I appreciate your comments. And we have run a good campaign against each other. We haven't come out with attack ads. We haven't come out at each other personally. It's all been policy. And I really appreciate that style of campaign, so the voters can truly see where we stand on policies and not see the political rhetoric that goes back and forth with those ads. 2020 has been difficult. It really has for the country. And it seems like if you back one presidential candidate, then if you disagree, then you hate that person. And I feel like we need to heal as a country, and we need to come together and remember that we're all still people. We all still want to help people. We all want to get to the same place. We all want a roof over our heads. We all want food. We all need those necessities in life. And just because somebody supports Trump or somebody supports Biden doesn't mean they're a bad person. It doesn't. So I think there's a lot of hate that's being spread around with social media and sometimes the media with rhetoric going back and forth that I wish we could change some of those systems. I really do. But the way the model of social media is now, that I don't know if it can be changed. But I think we have to do something to try to repair what the damage that's been done to our country. And we can come back together and realize that we're all Americans, we're all human, and that we should begin that healing process and love each other. And once again, I'm going to say thanks again, Emerson. I do appreciate the campaign that we've done back and forth. And I think it should be a model of how it's done in Oregon, is just based on policy.
Thank you very much, Jack. We will now have our final statements. Emerson Levy, you are first up.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. And Jack, thank you again for your comment. I really hope that, there are differences in our policy, and that's what we're saying, that Jack and I have demonstrated that we have different views and the voters get to make their choice on substantive policy, not gotcha moments where you make your brain go, is that something? We've told you our policies and where we stand on things. And you as the voter get to make the choice based on substantive policy. And I think that shows respect to the voter and to our democracy and our process. Again, if there's anything today that you feel like you want to learn more about, we have a lot of on our social media and our website. It's emersonvotes.com. We've done stuff over the last year to really hammer out a lot of these policy issues. And if you also feel like it's not on there, just reach out to me directly and I'm happy to answer any policy questions that you might have. I'm really honored for the ability to run this race, and I have a lot of great plans for Oregon. I'm a relentless advocate. I will work hard for you, and I will work hard for your family just as hard as I work and fight for mine. Again, thank you for this opportunity, and thank you, Jack, for running a decent race with me. And I just hope to earn your vote in November. And again, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you all today.
Thank you very much, Emerson. Jack Zika, would you do your final statement, please?
Thank you. So thank you again to the League of Women Voters and City Club for hosting this forum. We do things a little differently over here than they do in Portland. And I've been successful working with legislators of both parties who represent other parts of the state to address Central Oregon's biggest challenges, including affordable housing, childcare, and wildfire. I don't always vote with my colleagues from Portland, but I think I have their respect, and they definitely have mine. It is a kind of a mutual respect and willingness to work together that will help bridge the divide between rural Oregon and urban Oregon. I have shown that I am able to stand strong for Central Oregon, but do so in a way that retains relationships we need to get things done. In this age of overheated political rhetoric, I believe we need more calm and collective voices. These are difficult times for many of us in our community due to the pandemic and resulting economic shutdown. I have spoken to countless Central Oregonians who have struggled to receive desperately needed unemployment checks and other assistance from the state. Since the pandemic began, I have helped many of our neighbors receive those benefits, which has been one of the most rewarding things I've done in my first term. I'm committed to continually and to provide the legislative oversight that's needed to repair our broken unemployment system so that we can handle claims more quickly. It is inexcusable for our state government to let down those who need it most when they need it most. We are not out of the COVID woods yet, not by a long shot, but we are making progress, and soon I hope Central Oregon's economy and its schools will fully reopen. I work every day to help Central Oregonians weather this storm, and it is my honor to do so. And I'm asking for your vote so I can keep working for you in Salem. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jack. Thank you to the candidates for participating in today's forum. We know this season is grueling and we appreciate you showing up. And thanks to the League of Women Voters of Deschutes County and City Club of Central Oregon for partnering to get this information out. Remember, if you enjoyed today's forum and would like to help cover the cost, please consider making a donation to City Club on their website at cityclubco.org. If you are interested in becoming a member or making a contribution to the League of Women Voters of Deschutes County, please contact the League through their website, lwvdeschutes.org. Thanks again to our candidate forum series sponsors, the Deschutes Public Library and Buchanan Schmidt LLC. Thank you to our candidates today, Jack Zika and Emerson Levy. Thank you for your interest in keeping democracy alive. The next candidate forum will be State Representative 54th District and will air on Tuesday, October 13th at 7 p.m. Please be sure to watch. This was pre-recorded Thursday, October 8th, 2020. Thank you for watching.